So, when BFA came out, I made a video on the essential weak auras that everybody needed for doing Mythic Plus. And now that Shadowlands is out, I thought I'd revisit the topic because a few things have changed. So let's dive right into it with the weak auras that I think all Mythic Plus players should have when doing Mythic Plus in Shadowlands. So just before we go into our first one, I do also want to mention that I did not make any of the weak auras in question in this video. And I'm also not suggesting that there aren't alternatives that do the same job, be it in other people's weak auras or in add-ons. But the ones that I am talking about here in this video are the ones that I found and used that I think do the task that I want them to accomplish. So first up, we're going to talk about an absolute doozy, and it's going to be the interrupt tracker. Now, most classes have interrupts, and most dungeons have many mobs that are going to have very important interrupts. The interrupt tracker is essentially just going to be able to let you know when your interrupt is off cooldown and available, as well as other people's. That way, when a cast is coming through and maybe you've pre-assigned the order of what people are supposed to be doing their interrupts on, but someone's messed up, you're going to be able to see that, and you're going to be able to make decisions on the fly to be able to make sure that that cast does not get through. It's a very simple add-on, a very simple weak aura, a very basic weak aura, but one that is incredibly useful and one that I think everybody should have, even if you are playing as a class like a lot of the healers that do not have interrupts. Next up, we want to talk about what we're going to lead on to from that last point about there being lots of casts of note that need to be interrupted and or dodged or things of that nature in these dungeons. And there is a Shadowlands dungeon weak aura pack that is going to be able to let you know whenever a trash mob or a boss has some sort of effect that you're going to need to take note of and alter your playstyle in order to be able to deal with. Now, there are of course many add-ons that serve the same function as this, as well as many other weak auras that we're going to discuss, and if you prefer an add-on, by all means use an add-on, but if you are looking for getting everything through your weak auras, then this is going to be a very good all-in-one that allows you to know not only boss mechanics, but also trash mechanics and what you need to do in order to be able to deal with them effectively. This is quite a big weak aura. It is going to be quite taxing on a lot of people who are on lower-end systems, and when you first import it, it may cause your system to lag somewhat, but it's well worth it as it does provide pretty comprehensive information on a lot of the abilities of the trash and bosses in the game, meaning that you're probably going to die a little bit less. While I did allude to the fact that there are add-ons that do this same functionality, most notably DBM or Little Wigs, I do personally think that these add-ons generally aren't as good as the weak aura for tracking trash mobs. They're probably better for bosses in my opinion, which is why in these videos you will see that I am using both. However, I do think that having this weak aura for tracking the trash is definitely going to be something that's beneficial to you. But like I said, if you are interested in the add-ons, I am intending on making a variant of this video on essential add-ons for Mythic Plus as well, so why not consider subscribing to the channel to see when that one comes out if that is your preference. Next up, we have one that is more Shadowlands specific now, in that we are going to be keeping a track of our Mythic Pluses completed this week. Now, in the past, we've only really cared about what our best Mythic Plus was. However, now with the Great Vault, we also have to care what our 4th best and 10th best Mythic Plus were as well. And this is something that a lot of people simply can't do off the top of their heads. Myself, at least, I certainly can't remember yesterday, never mind a whole week ago. And as a result, I think I need that little bit of assistance. Now, this week aura, I have it set to only appear in rested areas now. I have changed that since the time of recording, so that's why it's not the case in the footage. But the weak aura in question is the one over on the left hand side of my screen that shows the Mythic Plus dungeons that I've completed this week, both the total amount, the dungeon and level, and orders them, and also shows the item level of the reward that I'm going to receive for my Mythic Vault slots, my Great Vault slots, sorry, for Mythic Plus. And it's going to make it considerably easier for keeping a track of what options are going to be available to you in terms of both the quantity that you have unlocked on the Great Vault, as well as also the item level of each respective section. Now, penultimately, what I want to show you is one that you might have actually seen in the footage already, but not actually picked up on, and that is the weak aura I am using for auto-marking the targets. Now, This is going to be pretty pointless when it comes to boss fights, however on Trash it can be very helpful in that it can be used in a variety of different ways. I have it set to the default settings, which I really like because of the fact that it's basically going to mark targets that are notable in trash packs. If you are pulling 5 mobs and 2 of them, for example, have the ability that is going to either devastate your team or heal another mob, those are the ones that you are really going to want to keep a track of so you can interrupt and stun them respectively. But of course, in that big melee of things that go on, then you can easily lose track of where a mob is or whether it's casting or not. And by putting these markers on it automatically, it just helps give you that little bit of extra focus so you know which mobs that you are going to want to keep an eye on. Now finally, for anyone who doesn't like to be rude, myself included, I've got a weak aura that I want to mention here for basically being an auto response to any whispers that you're going to get during a Mythic Plus dungeon run. Now of course Mythic Plus is timed and you're always going to want to make the most of your time, and as such the opportunities to reply to whispers that you've received are going to be pretty minimal, because the time you could spend writing a reply is time you could spend killing trash or progressing through the dungeon. Now what this weak aura does is essentially when anyone messages you, it's going to automatically reply to them, letting them know that you are in a Mythic Plus dungeon, as well as giving them a little bit of information in terms of what that Mythic Plus dungeon is and how it seems to be progressing. I think that's mainly so that these people can then get a rough idea of how long it's going to be before you're going to give their message some attention and reply to them in due time. Now finally, while editing, I have elected to also include one further. I know I said that last one was the last one, but I did find this after I originally started doing the recording of this video, and I thought I wanted to include it in there for you as well. It's not working quite as I had hoped it would, but I think it's still going to be of much use to you all, and that is going to be a weak aura that helps you to track the groups in the group finder for your Mythic Plus dungeons. Now what this does is twofold. First of all, the part that's fully functional is that it's going to allow you to see team composition in groups when you are looking for a group in the group finder. Now this is potentially quite helpful because group composition could matter quite a lot in certain dungeons, and also with weeks that have certain affixes. I know for example this week when we've been pushing keys with the storming affix, we're trying to avoid being particularly melee heavy, so if you see a group that is already double melee and you would make it a third, you may think that that might not be a group that you want to join, or one that might not take you because of them wanting to avoid that same problem themselves. The second part of this weak aura is that it's going to give you an easy to see Raider IO mark for the group. However, this is somewhat flawed. From what I can tell, it does actually only show you the Raider IO of the leader of the group that in question, and this isn't going to give you all the information that you may want. Now, this is going to be very helpful because if someone has a really high Raider IO, for example, then chances are if they're slumming it down below at something that you're wanting to do, they're probably aware of the fact that what they need to do to make a good group, and therefore the other people with them might be good as well. However, if it is only going to show you the leader, it doesn't necessarily show you how good of a group creator that leader is, more just how good they are at their own role within Mythic Plus dungeons. It is perfectly plausible that someone can have a really high Raider IO score and be very good at playing the game and someone that you want to group with. However, they're really bad at putting a group together themselves and are going to take a lot of people who are perhaps not up to the task of what their Mythic Keystone that week is going to be for that group. Now, I still think this is a good weak aura and it does have its functionalities, but do bear in mind that this is something that is going to be a little bit loose on its uses and something that you are going to want to think for yourself independently, as well as possibly team it up with some add-ons that do similar tricks. As I alluded to, I will be talking about add-ons in another video that have the same functionality as a lot of these weak auras, as well as a few that are also very helpful beyond what these weak auras can do. So if you are interested in that, please do consider subscribing to the channel so that you will be notified when it comes out. But as for now guys, I do hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please do consider liking the video, it does help a lot, and I hope to see you in the next one. Later.